When the sun comes up in Tennessee, there's no telling where he'll be. Maybe on some bayou way down in Louisiana, somewhere off the Florida Keys, fishing in the deep blue sea. No walls are gonna hold him, he's an outdoor kind of man. Derrick Beeler, Derrick Beeler, outdoor.
Wow, now there's a whopper.
I don't want to talk about it. I don't want to talk about it right now. It's catch and release.
Catch and release. Yeah.
Today on Derrick Beeler Outdoors, we're going to head down to the Clinch River with our good friend Darrell Webb, bluegrass artist, very well-known bluegrass artist with a band called the Darrell Webb Band. So he's going to join us for a little fishing. We're going to throw a few trout magnets out and see how we do on the Clinch River. Tell us a little bit about your latest album you got out.
All right, it's on Mountain Fever Records. The album's called Dream Big. I wanted to do a 20-year celebration. 2014 marked my 20th year in the music business, and I wanted to get either everybody that I've ever played with or filled in with in the last, like in the last 20 years, such as Rhonda Vincent, Daly and Vincent, the Lonesome River Band, Wildfire, the Grascals, Blue Highway. There's a bunch of great people on it, and it turned out to be a super really good project, and it's doing really good this year.
Darrell, tell us about some of your big influences that got you interested in music and got you on your way.
Well, I've had a bunch of them down through the years, such as my dad was probably my biggest influence, but I've had other people such as, and a lot of people I was fortunate enough to work with, Doyle Lawson, J.D. Crowe, Bill Monroe, the Stanley Brothers, Tony Rice, of course, is one of my biggest influences, which he is for a lot of bluegrass people, But I listen to everything from bluegrass to, to Van Halen. I've got a lot of different influences. I love Eric Clapton, Van Halen, Stevie Ray Vaughan, all that kind of stuff. I try to listen to a lot of their stuff and interpret it into what I do too.
Incorporate it into your music. We get jacked up more not fishing than we do fishing, don't we?
Yeah. Not fishing.
Darrell, did you grow up with a lot of any kind of outdoor activity?
I did, yeah. I used to go fishing quite a bit. The first time I ever went fishing, I went to my uncle's house in Kentucky. My aunt and uncle, we used to go visit them at least 3 or 4 times a year. They had a place down there in Muhlenberg County, Kentucky, like the old song says, he had about probably 6 or 8 acres down there and had a little pond near the back of his house. We'd walk down there, and I was probably about 11 or 12 years old, and that's the first time I ever went fishing. Went down there and caught about 4 or 5 bluegills, and I just thought that was the neatest, coolest thing in the world. And I went down there and about fell in the pond a couple times. But I used to look forward to going down there all the time just to go fishing in my uncle's pond behind his house.
Right.
But yeah, we used to make a lot of trips down there, and we got acquainted with a bunch of people that my folks knew that lived down there, and been down there quite a few times, me and my dad and my sister, to play music. But yeah, it was always a good time going down there.
We always ask our guests here on Derrick Beeler Outdoors if they have a good fishing story for us. You got one there?
Oh yeah. We were me and my sister and my brother-in-law were fishing in Bradshaw, West Virginia, down at Sandy River down there, and I threw my pole out there a few times, you know, and just thought that, you know, well, I'm not going to catch anything. And I threw it out there one more time, and then I started getting this really big hit. And I thought for sure I'd caught a snake. I mean, I jerked it 2 or 3 times, and I saw something come up out of the water, and it was about this long. I said, "Oh my God, I've caught a snake," you know. So I threw the pole down and ran all the way back up the hill to the car. My brother-in-law, he grabbed the fishing pole and reeled it in. The thing was about this long as smallmouth. It turned out to be about 18 inches long. He said, "Here's your snake." Here's your snake. But it scared me to death. I thought for sure I'd caught a snake.
Are there any good music stories to tell the folks watching today?
I've got several of those, but my fondest one that I have is when I met Doyle Lawson. Was probably my biggest mandolin influence of all time. And when every time that he was within 2 hours of my house in West Virginia, I'd usually go try to see him. And I got to see him a bunch, but the first time I ever met Doyle, I went to a place called Belfast, Virginia, over there at the House and Barn Mountain Bluegrass and Country Music Festival. They had a huge festival over there every year, and I met, that's the first time I ever got to see Doyle. And my dad, you know, took me over and introduced me to him, and my dad asked him if he cared to listen to me play a few songs on the mandolin. And he said, "Sure, you know, why not?" He's, "Go grab your stuff and just come on back over here to the bus." So we had to walk like all the way to the top of the hill. It was probably a good quarter of a mile to get our stuff. And we walked back, and it was really, really cold that night. And my mom and my sister and my dad, they were all with me, and we got over to his bus, and I guess he thought, you know, that, oh boy, here's another these two guys that just, you know, just want to aggravate me to death.
Right.
Well, my dad had an old beat up case, and he had a 1941 D18 in it. And we got down there beside the bus. He said, "Well, you guys can we'll just pick right here, you know." And it was really loud between 2 buses. Well, my dad opened that guitar case, and he said, "Hang on." He said, "You guys need to come up on the bus." So we went up there and sit on the bus, and my mom and my sister was standing outside. He said, "Tell him to come on the bus too, you know, it's cold outside." Well, we stood up there and got our instruments out and played one tune, and it ended up being, you know, 30, 45 minutes to an hour. We stood there and played, and I played every song that I'd learned that he had played.
Yeah.
You know, and even as, I guess that was back when Russell Moore and Scott Vestal was in the band. So I could see Russell and Scott sitting back in the bus, you know, and they were sitting back there just trying to play along with me and Dad. I saw Doyle turn around, and he went like this, you know, said, "Y'all be quiet a minute." And so we ended up playing for about an hour and a half right there on his bus, and we got done and put our instruments up, and he hugged my neck and told me, he said, "You're doing really good," and gave me my first tortoiseshell pick that I ever seen in my life. Really? He said, "If you can ever get used to playing with one of these, it'll really help you."
Yeah, that had to be a great experience.
Oh, it was awesome.
Tell us, Darrell, about some of the guys you've played with in the past, and about who's in your band now as well.
All right. I've been really fortunate enough to play with some really great people down through the years. You know, in '94 I started my first professional job was with the Lonesome River Band when Dan Tominski had left to go play with Allison Krauss. That was my first job. I was there for about a year or a year and a half, and then I went from there on to J.D. Crowe for about a year and a half. And then actually I took some time off after that because I was living up in Ohio at the time, and moved. I was there probably a couple years and moved back home and just took a break from music for a little while, and then went back with J.D. Crowe on a second term for another little while, and then we formed, me and Robert Hale, Kurt Chapman, and Phil Ledbetter, and Barry Crabtree formed the band Wildfire, which I stayed with for about 7 or 8 years. I was there for quite a while. I went from there to play with Rhonda Vincent and the Rage for a year. Went on from there to play with Michael Cleveland and Flamekeeper for a short stint, but I've filled in with a bunch of different people down through the years. Blue Highway, Daly and Vincent, the Grascals, a few other ones that I've probably forgotten about, but in 2009 I started the Darrell Webb band, and the band has been together going on almost 6 years now, but we have a new lineup right now. Actually have my sister playing bass and singing tenor, have Cody Hill from Indianapolis, Indiana playing banjo, Andy Ruff from Jeffersonville, Indiana playing dobro, and then Jared Hensley playing guitar, who's been with me almost 5 years now. And it's a great band, and we just got a full-time job playing at Old Smoky here at the Old Smoky locations in Pigeon Forge and Gatlinburg. So it's really helped the band a lot as far as being able to practice every day.
Right, getting out there hitting it every day.
Mm-hmm.
For sure.
But it's been a lot of fun. We've been having some really, really good crowds, but one thing I'm looking forward to, is playing every day up there really helps. And then by the time you go out on the road shows, it makes you really tight.
Right.
But yeah, we've been having some good crowds. We've been having a lot of fun at Old Smoky.
I'd say you have. We always ask all of our guests to come back to the Derrick Beeler Outdoors front porch and pick a tune. Would you like to do that?
Absolutely.
Let's head that way.
All right. There's a great divide, it ain't marked by any signs, but you'll always know it's there, like some kind of borderline. There's a single mom who works 2 jobs, barely getting by, while there's a gambler in an office over on the other side. Some don't have to do without when times are getting tough. They got more than they'll ever need and still can't get enough. They're busy making more while we're thrown under the bus. Yeah, there's people like that, and then there's folks like us. There's people like that, and then there's folks like us. Money might be an evil that we can't do without, but we could be doing better if we had more middle ground. There's a way to make a living that doesn't grow more greed, and there's a way to get ahead that won't make each other bleed. Some don't have to do without when times are getting tough. They got more than they'll ever need and still can't get enough. They're busy making more while we're thrown under the bus. Yeah, there's people like that, and then there's folks like us. There's people like that, and then there's folks like us. I am just a simple man, but there's a lot like me. We don't look for any handouts, we don't ask for sympathy. 8 hours a day, 5 days a week, instead of crooked schemes. We all just want a shot to live a piece of this great dream. Some don't have to do without when times are getting tough. They got more than they'll ever need and still can't get enough. Busy making more while we're thrown under the bus. Yeah, there's people like that, and then there's folks like us. There's people like that, and then there's folks like us.
Hey Darrell, tell us a little bit about where folks can find the Darrell Webb Band's information.
All right, you can visit my website, darrellwebband.com. That's 2 R's, 2 L's, and 3 B's. We got a Facebook page, Darrell Webb Band on Facebook, and a Twitter page also for anybody that likes to tweet. I'll take just a minute here to tell you about our sponsors. Hook Mandolins over in Greensboro, North Carolina. A guy named Chris Shelton makes those, and they're just great instruments. I have my very own signature model now, which is the first one that I've ever had. So check out hookmandolins.com. GHS Strings, we're endorsed by GHS, and Diodario Strings. NS Bass Design, which is a Ned Steinberger company that makes the upright electric basses, which our bass player plays on stage, and it actually gets a lot of attention. Blue Chip Picks, a guy named Matt Goins here in town makes those, and they're the best picks I've ever played with. They'll last and last forever. So check out bluechippicks.com.
Be sure to check out some of Derrick Beeler Outdoors sponsors. MidwesternTrucks.com. Those guys up there build some beautiful looking truck. Got a great website, MidwesternTrucks.com. Also, like to point out where the Derrick Beeler Outdoors front porch is right here is inside of an antique store called the Old Peddler's Shop. So if you're ever coming down Highway 61 in Clinton, Tennessee, be sure to stop at the Old Peddler's Shops. Darrell, had a great time fishing with you today, man. That was a great song you did for us there. And y'all be sure and visit Darrell's website, darrellwebband.com.
When the sun comes up in Tennessee, there's no telling where he'll be. Maybe on some bayou way down in Louisiana, somewhere off the Florida Keys, fishing in the deep blue sea. No walls are gonna hold him, he's an outdoor kind of man. Derrick Beeler, Derrick Beeler, outdoors.